college professors of rhetoric. Costumes to read poetry to the class, or to tell pulpy stories about all the banging the Byrons and or Shelleys got up to. Buddy was a super friendly guy who had time for everybody. Imagine the personality of Jack Black in the body of a 24-year-old Harry Potter. His data present comes up and the poem is Rime of the Ancient Mariner. At first he does not show. The prof goes through the preliminary matters and then before she can ask where he is, Buddy kicks down the door to the class and struts in, with somebody dressed as a fisherman and a woman in a showy prom dress. These people are not in our class. He proceeds to take a literal boombox, this is like 10 years after those stopped being a thing, to the front of the room, plug it in, and start playing the Rime of the Ancient Mariner metal song by Iron Maiden. We think, okay, cool, this is his presentation. No, dear reader, that is not what happened. What happened next was a 60-plus minute reenactment of the overall story of Rime of the Ancient Mariner through a Hunter S. Thompson lens. The woman is initially the guest going to a wedding whom he stops, but then terrorizes her and holds her captive with a reenactment, a presentation within a presentation with his captain friend about how he killed an albatross in an aviary while pressuring this captain figure into driving him around to score more drugs as things kept spiraling out of control. As this is going on, the girl, at first seeming terrified of them, circles around, throws on some dark makeup, and suddenly, with everyone's attention on this weird gonzo reenactment, makes her entrance as Death and his rival from the play, lecturing them for their mortal hubris and both demanding her attention and ignoring her. The metal song stopped playing 15 minutes ago and the whole class is caught off guard by this reversal when they thought the whole thing was wrapping up after he got to the part in his weird story about the dead bird. But she keeps going in a fury. She throws out the sea captain driver, and then she and he finish out the rest of the poem, with the mariner receiving his curse. They must have been rehearsing for weeks. There's no reference to anything written down, and they are just living the emotional depths of this reckoning. As they draw to the end, she resumes being the woman waiting for a bus wedding guest. They finish. Take a bow. The class is part amazed, part confused, and just besides themselves. There is some scattered applause. Then he abruptly takes his boombox and they storm the duck out. Never came back to the class that night. The prof takes a break, pokes her head out to look around, tries to talk about the poem, but she just cannot. We've all just witnessed something together, something weird and wonderful and spellbinding. None of us put a stop to it, least of all her. There was nothing left to say about Coleridge. No presentation I have ever experienced in my educational or professional career will ever approach the time I saw a gonzo reimagining or Rime of the Ancient Mariner in a lit class. I am a TOEFL for a chemistry class. Twice a week the students have to turn in a worksheet to me, and I require them to have them stapled because of the mess it turns into otherwise. Anyway, one student made it through the class without buying a stapler because they figured out some weird origami-like way of folding the corners together in such a way that you physically could not get them unstuck without carefully undoing the folds. Now I teach it to my students and tell them if they do not own a stapler they can just do that. Not me, but I took an intro to accounting class that was required for all business majors where we had a teacher that was teaching his first college class ever. He said accounts were for nerdy accounting people and wanted to show everyone how to look at the PL and balance sheet like a business does. He would assign us things to do, and if you could not figure out the answer he would tell you to reread the chapter the answer was in there. As you could guess, a ton of kids struggled or had to cheat to get by after the first test. But then there was some kid who had taken accounting before at a different university and the credits didn't transfer, so he was forced into this class and he knew all the answers. He hosted a homework review in the library on a whiteboard and answered any questions and helped everyone study. I think we all just learned from that dude more than the teacher. Not a professor, but a TOEFL. We had assignments based on the daily lectures in class. Assignments were due at the end of the week, but this one student always turned his assignments in minutes after each class. I noticed on his laptop, while everyone else was taking notes on theirs, he would be filling out the assignment as the professor went through his PowerPoint. He would also ask the professor questions about the lecture that gave him the answers to the assignment. Not only was he learning from essentially taking notes, but he never had to do homework outside of class. Not the professor, I was the student, but he told me no one had ever done this before and he was impressed, so I will share it. I had a hard time in university. Personal things, would not go into it, but it's relevant to know. I could not attend some lectures and I always requested to work alone for group work due to the problems. As you can imagine, things piled up. I fell behind. Countless emails I ignored from the head of department and I avoided seeing him for as long as I could. I was studying computer forensics. The head of the department was a nice man, but his introduction had left us all a bit weary of him. He used to be military and in his words he was an interrogation expert. He was a giant of man, so he took him at his word. He told us if you are called to the office, and he has biscuits on the table, you should be okay. But if there is no biscuits, you're probably going to get shouted at or interrogated. Anyway, when I got called in, there was biscuits on the table. He wasn't wrong about the interrogation expertise because I was very much at ease. After 5 minutes of small talk, he then removed the plate of biscuits and my heart sank, taking me completely by surprise. I knew I was going to get lambasted for missing lectures. This was before they knew what was going on with me. I already knew before going, I was going to be in trouble, but he might understand if I laid everything out for him. If I had the chance, I played my hand. I unzipped my bag and took out a pack of biscuits I did brought with me. I opened them and offered him one. He looked gazumped like I did one-upped him and he didn't know what to do. But it bought me 2 minutes. I told him, I know you're going to shout at me, and I really cannot handle that at the moment. I am not doing great and I am barely holding on. Can I please talk to you before you yell at me, or words to that effect. He allowed me to explain. After listening to me, he pulled his plate of biscuits out of the drawer and replaced them on his desk. He listened to me and understood I needed help and referred me to the student mental health team. He later told me no one had ever thought to bring their own biscuits and it was a smart move. He left after my second year, but from the time I spoke to him until when he left, he checked up on me monthly, asked how class was, if I needed any help, even set it up for me to take my exams in an empty classroom with just him there. Good guy. I taught a lab that had a microscopy section back in the late zeros. Despite having a microscope camera for taking pictures of the field of view in my own high school labs and the technology being readily available, it was not something a university was willing to spring for the students of a 100-level class. One of my students just stuck his iPhone camera right up to the ocular lens of the scope and took a picture. I was floored. Now looking back, I am thinking, of course that would work, why wouldn't it? But at the time myself and my BlackBerry were very impressed. I was a top. We had a statistics course at our university that was unnecessarily hard to get through our undergrad business program. Anyways, we had a student who recorded himself doing the homework and uploading it on YouTube for the other students to understand. It was genuinely helpful. He even used different numbers and examples and whatnot to not give you the answer. The professor caught wind of it and claimed he was cheating, gave him 0s on every assignment test up to that point, threatened to sue him for using her materials to make public, and made him public apologize to the class for academic dishonesty. That guy literally helped so many people that would struggle in the class or be in tutoring for hours. Duck that professor. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe.